La furia de la artillería ucraniana está apuntando a un objetivo específico. Nada en esta guerra pasa desapercibido, ni siquiera los rusos que entraron en esta casa a 8 kilómetros de distancia. Ellos eran el objetivo, se salvaron por un fallo ucraniano en el disparo. Estos artilleros ahora deben esperar a recibir mejores coordenadas del dron de vigilancia antes de atacar de nuevo, en su intento de mover hacia adelante la línea del frente de Zaporilla. A pesar de que ellos también son vigilados constantemente y la mayoría de las veces superados en armamento. La artillería del siglo XX se mueve lentamente y es demasiado fácil de ver con la tecnología del siglo XXI. Los drones de vigilancia y ataque de Rusia nunca están lejos, pero tampoco lo están los drones ucranianos, nos dice Odessa, el comandante de la batería de artillería. Odessa les dice a sus hombres que bajen un grado el arma. Entre drones y artillería nada se deja al azar. Lo que han estado apuntando es un edificio justo al otro lado que alberga infantería y artillería rusa. El dron los ha estado guiando. Están a punto de disparar por tercera vez y lo que nos dicen es que entonces, en respuesta, deberíamos esperar un ataque de la artillería rusa. Esta vez el disparo ha tenido éxito. No solo destruyó el edificio, sino también la munición y la artillería rusa. Lo que significa que la represalia será rápida y es hora de irnos, tan rápido como podamos. La respuesta no tarda mucho. Porque como era de esperar después del ataque de Ucrania, inmediatamente empezó el contraataque de la artillería rusa. Ahora tenemos que alejarnos lo más rápido que podamos, aunque lo que nos explican los soldados es que una de las cosas más peligrosas al conducir por estas áreas no solo es la artillería, sino los drones. Desde donde está, en la parte trasera de la camioneta, Odessa puede escuchar y ver el fuego que viene hacia nosotros. Nos dice que vayamos rápido debido a la artillería. ¡Wow! En total fueron devueltas 9 rondas de artillería. Eso mide la ira rusa y hoy para estos soldados fue un día de éxito ucraniano. Y de adrenalina por la supervivencia, por lo menos por hoy. Melissa Bell, CNN, en el sur de Ucrania.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are expected to meet next week around the UN General Assembly in New York. Now, sources tell CNN the two leaders will hold one-on-one talks at that time, though it's not clear if that meeting will take place in New York or Washington. In the Crimean port of Sevastopol, home of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, new video purports to show a damaged Russian warship hit early Wednesday by a Ukrainian strike. The Ukrainian officials said the ship was destroyed along with a Russian sub. Now, CNN can't independently verify that claim. And in one of its boldest attacks yet on the peninsula, Ukraine said it took out a Russian air defense system in western Crimea early Thursday. CNN's Katie Pugliese is tracking developments and joins us live this hour from London. So, Katie, what is the latest on all those attacks?
Well, Kim, clearly this is something that has been happening all week and with increasing regularity in Crimea in particular. This has been the focus of part of Ukraine's counter-offensive. You mentioned the air defense system shot down overnight yesterday. Russia reported that there were 11 Ukrainian drones that they intercepted. The day before that was, of course, the attack on Sevastopol, that port, that Russian port by the Ukrainians. A major attack, really. It resulted in 24 people injured. And the videos we geolocated show considerable damage to that ship repair facility facility. Now, the Ukrainians are saying that as a result of this, they have wiped out Russia's ability to produce ships for this conflict. Now, of course, that isn't something we can independently confirm, but that is the level of ambition here that Ukraine are declaring, that this is where they are taking the conflict next. This is where the counteroffensive is going next. And it's worth putting this in the context of what we've been seeing in terms of diplomacy, not only with Russia and North Korea meeting, but also with the US relationship with Ukraine. Of course, Secretary of State Blinken was in town in Ukraine last week, and now we're hearing reports that President Joe Biden and President Zelensky are going to be meeting next week in New York. This is significant for Zelensky. He rarely leaves Ukraine during this war, and this is part of shoring up Western support to show that the counteroffensive is worth investing in, is worth supporting. And these kinds of big moments, such as the attack on Sevastopol, such as the capture of that village of Robotynia just a few weeks ago near the southern front line, all of these show that Ukraine is making progress in a counteroffensive that really has had some marginal gains at points. All of this is showing that as we move into the winter months, when the fighting will get considerably more difficult, there may be a lot more challenges ahead. Clearly, they want to show to their Western allies that there is still progress to be made. And the Crimean attacks that you mention are clearly a very clear sign of that they are making this progress and they are making some quite considerable gains in this area.
All right. In the meantime, so we're learning more about the meeting between President Zelensky and President Biden. What more can you tell us?
Well, Kim, clearly this is something Zelensky wants to show that the US is having a clear ally here, that they are supporting them. This $1 billion assistance package recently from the United States, again, a significant moment for Ukraine in this counteroffensive, showing that there is progress. Meeting face-to-face is another example of that these two leaders are very much in alliance as to where this counteroffensive is going next. And again, this is coming just as we're seeing all of this imagery of Russia, President Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un meeting. This is showing that they are allies for Ukraine, that the US is very much still behind Zelensky and very much still behind the Ukraine war. And this is where Ukraine and where the US are taking their partnership next.
North Korea's reclusive leader is on the move in Russia's Far East. Russian state media released footage of Kim Jong-un's private armoured train rolling up to the railway station in the city of Komsomolsk on Amur, where he's reportedly touring an aircraft plant. Kim is expected to visit several military-related sites following his high-stakes summit with the Russian president amid Western concerns about a possible arms agreement. The Kremlin has confirmed the two leaders will meet again in Pyongyang, but did not reveal when. We're also hearing some of the gifts they exchanged during their talks on Wednesday were locally made firearms. Well, looming large over this closely watched summit is China. CNN's Paula Hancock explains.
It is Kim Jong-un's first known trip outside of North Korea in more than 4 years. Not to China, the country that's propped his country up for decades, but Russia, historically North Korea's second closest ally.
He is basically hedging against possible change in Chinese position. China might make a deal behind his back with the Americans. China might get in a serious economic trouble.
Beijing has said the Putin-Kim meeting is a matter for those two countries, but in recent years has made a clear move towards Russia as relations with the United States worsen. Xi Jinping has met Vladimir Putin 40 times in 10 years. That's according to US think tank CSIS, in bilateral and multilateral settings. The Kremlin says another meeting is upcoming. While China is not believed to have provided arms to Russia, an unclassified report by US intelligence says it has given technology that is helping Moscow in its war on Ukraine. Xi's no-show at the recent G20 in India also points to his diplomatic priorities.
It's actually gone beyond just this meeting. The meeting that China held of the BRIC nations, bringing in Iran and other countries, was an effort to show that China could organize an alternative bloc to the West. And of course, Russia's a part of that.
South Korean intelligence assesses the idea of bilateral military drills between Russia and North Korea was pitched by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu when he was in Pyongyang in July. Interaction Pyongyang is not generally party to, but could learn a lot from. Military cooperation, which experts believe could then include China.
I think it's possible, and indeed highly likely, because it will be seen as a kind of symmetric answer to the recent joint military exercises near the Korean Peninsula by the Americans, Japanese and South Koreans.
Nothing unites more than a common enemy, and Russia, China and North Korea would all like to see an alternative world order, a world where the US is less powerful and where United Nations sanctions have little, if any, bite. Paula Hancock's CNN Seoul.